I'd just like to go over some of the tracker designs that I've got here today and how the coat around this area here and here and on this one here can have an effect on the feathers that it produces. And you can see they're all slightly different in their shape and the size of the radius. And here's just a couple of models I've got here on the smaller side of the Bushcraft knives. And here we have my larger models that I use for my camp knives, and you can see they've both got quarter rounds on them, slightly larger, different shape again. This is the Frontline Cookery Tracker and this is the Condor Survival Axe, and they both produce feathers, they just produce different types of feathers. So obviously down to the size, the weight, down to pure physics, this can also have an effect on the types of feathers that you produced. So here we have the Shirley, and obviously this is a massive piece of wood for this, and I would highly unlikely that I would use this size of wood, but let's say this is all I've got. So here we go, we just stick it in, and there you can see just the way that that quarter round works. And the recurve also assists this knife, and I'll say this is my best knife when it comes to producing feathers, just because of the recurve, the size of the blade. It's very dexterous in the hand, I can manoeuvre it, and the recurve definitely assists in producing the initial stages of the feather. Okay, so there we go. You produce big feathers as well, and also it's down to a lot of practice as well. Okay, but this pinching up in the blade, it just fits my hand perfect to produce lovely feathers like this. Here's the Wenger collaboration model with Boca, and I've been finding this has been terrific at producing feathers. So I'll just go to another bit of the grain here, and here we go, and you can see straight away it's producing longer ones, but I find the draw section is better to start with this knife, and then it seems to work its way around the quarter round. And I feel because of the size and the solid grip you can get with this, and the bill hook here really lends itself to producing really good feathers. And if you can see that, it's actually cutting it with the draw section. Just do that slow for you, and it's actually, if I pull this feather back, it's actually not on the quarter round. You see that? I'll do that again. There you go, you can see it. It's actually the draw section it's producing the feathers on this one. Yeah, a lot of us expect just to go straight on to the quarter round, and if I do that with this large radius piece of wood, you can see it finds it very difficult to start the actual feather. But if I go back to the draw section, yeah, so using the draw section on this knife, so it's just to show you different shape, different style of blade, different radius of wood and different radius of quarter round can definitely have an effect on the feathers that you produce. Right, so here we have a Brock small tracker model, another excellent model for doing your smaller bushcraft tasks, and this produces really good feathers as well. But here again, it's the width of the wood we've chosen here, it's much wider. So let's see how this one gets on. There we go. And you can see they're slightly broader, but very thin. And I'll try and show you the initial bite there. You can see it's up here on the draw section. You see it kicks it off to start with. And if I go down actually onto the planter hook and try and do it, it produces a different type again, and it's not as effective. So by using a combination with this knife of the draw section and the quarter round, this produces really good feathers. There you go. Slightly larger, but they still burn and take to fire steel, no problem. So we can see then that the draw section definitely plays a big part in this. There's the type of feathers that the Brock produces, and here's the type of feathers that the Wenger model produced, or Boker should I say. But they still produce feathers, and if I took my time I could get them as small as this. I'll just give that a try. Clear this off. There you go. Slightly smaller. Right, different quarter round again, different size and shape of blade, and the radius of the wood has an effect once again, so it produces slightly different feathers. Right, so here we have the Condor survival axe. I'm actually not too sure if that's what this is actually called, but we'll show you the difference. This larger hook, so this I believe is a bill hook, but it can still produce feathers. Okay, so here we go. And because of the radius of the wood, it's finding it difficult, and then you can see here there's actually no contact in the inner radius of the quarter round there, so this is why it's using the end of the hook to produce small rolls rather than feathers. And you can see it's producing just small rolls, and how it won't actually work at all the quarter round. It's more this area here, the first inch from here to here, and the quarter round isn't actually doing anything. As you watch as I pull up, oh there you go, there's one, oh there, we're starting to get it now. Just must be a ridge I'm hitting. No, that's it back. But I'll show you the difference it'll make by changing the width of the wood. So there you go, you can see a big difference then in the width of the wood and how it's affected the way the knife actually produces curls. Compared to these ones here, big difference. Okay, you look at them and look at them. Alright, there you go, another small one. So you can produce them like that size. And just because the wood's wider, this recurve on the edge can produce these tight rolls like that. So here's a shirley or a smaller diameter. And it's finding this much easier. Right, so that's that. The boker. And again, much easier because the diameter of the wood fits the quarter round much better. Rock's really good at this. So the smaller diameter piece of wood with the smaller knives definitely makes a difference. So this is producing bigger feathers because it's a bigger quarter round or bill hook. Because of the size of the blades hitting the deck here, I'm finding this quite difficult to actually get it in position, but you can see that it's doing it no problem. Okay, and then the larger area, I'm starting to run out of space now. On the thinnest piece of wood, this is pine here, the smaller knives come into their own. Here we have the boker. And it's not doing quite as well, but what I can tell here, and I don't know if you can hear this on the camera, it's the grain's quite stuttery here and a lot of ridges. You can see it stuttering across, and this is a good example of how the grain can affect the type of feathers that you're getting, and as that starts to smooth out, the feathers are starting to come on. You can actually see the stick shaking here as it's gone over. And I don't know if you get that close enough, you can actually see the grooves now because I've been using it that much. Right, but that has an effect. So you're better just getting a fresh piece of wood. I'll show you what I mean. There you go. Big difference when the grain is right. Here we have the brock. And you can see the hook now is starting to bite in because of these ridges. Clear that off, take it to a fresh bit. And this is actually using more of the quarter round than the draw section now. And I feel that's, you can see that there, because the ridges are pushing it into a certain direction. Clear this off, and you've seen how well that performed earlier, but it's just to show you this grain change can have an effect on the knife. So we'll change this over to a nice smoother bit. This is really hard, this. There you go. Perfect example of how the grain has an effect on the types of feathers the knife can produce, and how wide the open grain is, and how it affects the way that the quarter round bites in to the wood. You can see the survival axe by Condor still working good, and the shape of the wood's actually fitting better into the quarter round. So angling it slightly changes the feathers. Okay, so much bigger knife, obviously harder to handle, but it's still producing good quality feathers. So if I take my time, I can produce rolls like that, or I can go up to feathers of this size, and you can do that with all those knives if you take your time and put the practice in. So all I wanted to kind of show you today was the difference the quarter rounds can make, the actual size of the blade, the weight of the blade, the shape of it, how that can have an effect, and how one knife suits one person and not the other. The width of the wood, the grain structure, how open or closed it is, the type of wood, the width of the wood can also have an effect on the feathers that any of these knives can produce. So it's just some of the findings I've found over the last number of years using the trackers, and for a beginner or somebody who's thinking of purchasing a tracker, hopefully this information would help you out a bit. It becomes very difficult at times to produce feathers, and other times when you get everything right it can be dead easy. And I hope this helps you out. Catch you all in my next video. Cheers.